Hey everybody, I'm Jody-Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And we are going to start hyper local and then go super global. We're going from City Hall to Jimmy Kimmel on this week's edition of
UnSpun.
George-Affleck.
We've got the whole world in our hands.
You know what? Let's just get this out of the way real quick before we even dive into other municipal little bits and pieces. The bright lights event moving out of Stanley Park now. It was like, it's leaving Stanley Park. It's going to Surrey.
This
So
is
train.
the Harry Potter thing or the bright lights thing?
This is the bright lights thing. This
Oh,
is the train is busted, and the firefighters need their burn fund
Oh,
to
yes.
actually raise money. So Surrey said, we'll take that. So that's going to be in Surrey. Way to go, Park Board. Way to go, Park Board. So the deadline is fast approaching for the window for the NDP to follow through on giving the nod, I guess, to Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim in his bid to dissolve the Park Board. So this morning, Ken Sim was putting a statement out there to Premier David-Eby, just saying, you told me 4 times that you're going to do this, and are you going to do that? What's the spin on this, George? What are we doing? What are we seeing here?
Well, time's running out. That's basically it. So obviously EB doesn't want to make the decision. I'm guessing it's, he's a MLA in Vancouver. So Park Board has rabid supporters
I'm in
in
his
Vancouver.
riding.
A lot of them are in his riding. So
I'm in his riding.
You're in his riding. But he's probably done the polling and thinking this is not a good win for me. I'm sure he has. So he's probably done the data for him. He doesn't need something else making his life more difficult. I think we're heading towards a decision that Ken Sim, if he's listening, here's what you should do. Stand down, announce that you're going to put a motion forward to include on the next ballot in next year a referendum question on the Park Board. Let the people of Vancouver decide. It's too late now. It's just a mess. You've created a mess. We don't know where we stand on this. It's too late. EB doesn't want to make the decision clearly. So let's put it on the ballot and let the Vancouver public decide if they want the Park Board or not, and make it binding or non-binding. I'm not sure, but basically you have to, you got to put them. You got to give it
binding. What non-binding is just
whatever.
So stupid.
Well, you got to get something on the ballot. Let the
you
people
got to get something on the ballot. Let the people decide. George, you should run for mayor. I'm going to say it again. I'd love to see Kit's Pool on that same ballot, because if everybody goes, no, we'll keep the Park Board. Well, let's open the pool. It's going to be another beautiful week ahead. Like we're
closed.
Whatever. It's closed. I never got there this year. I never got in.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. I know. Anyway, I'm digress, but everybody keeps talking to me about the pool. They're like, please keep fighting for the pool.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, all ages, all demographics. So Premier David-Eby,
your
people, if you're watching, if you are doing the polling on this, let me tell you, this spans every demographic you can imagine. And I'm getting 100% of people going, oh my God, what's happening with the pool? Please keep going. We need you to keep going. So
Kids Pool, by the way, and the bright lights are a metaphor for the Park Board's incompetence. I just think, it's all pools. We need better work for all our pools. We need more pools. Splash Vancouver, if anybody knows, it's actually a report that Park Board approved about a process for more pools, has not been implemented. Fail. And now
and the aquatic center being a 50-meter pool or a 25 meter pool. It's like, come on. And we just got an independent assessment of all of Vancouver's community centers and Park Board run facilities, and 75% of them are in complete and utter fail mode, like have not been kept up, which made me go, do other cities have this same problem? Guess what, George? They don't.
No. I mean, years of political bullshit over a lot in Park Board for 20 years now, back and forth. John Cooper, former Park Board chair, comes at me hard on this, Park Board dismantling and stuff like that, because he's a big supporter of the Park Board, obviously.
But he saved something, though.
He did a good job.
I would be okay with a John Cooper branded Park Board, but it's no longer the Park Board of John Cooper. This is Laura Christensen's little domain. She's like, I will decide. It's like, actually, we pay your salary to do what you're doing. And the infighting is just gross as well. Like knowing too much now after the stuff with the kids pool, because
Mm,
I now have so many sources within, and I do. It's unbelievable. And we're seeing it play out in the news. We saw it. It was in the Vancouver Sun and on CKNW about one park board commissioner barking about another park board's commissioner attendance. And like, this is a thing that they're bringing up at a park board meeting instead of fixing our community centers so a generation of kids can access them. Come on, be
yeah.
better. Okay, I'm moving on. Let's get mad
Do
about
show
something
up,
else.
please, as a park board commissioner. Can you just show up for the meetings, please?
Please. Oh,
So
but can you guys sort that out with a rule that's different? Because I think there are rules around that.
Yeah.
Like, just figure it out.
it's in the
Figure
books.
it out. And if you can't figure it out, but I will say I'm very pleased to see that the Vancouver City Councillors all voted unanimously for the Shaughnessy restaurant, the family-run restaurant in Van Dusen Gardens, to remain there as these like arbitrarily like your lease is up is another thing
Mhm.
that's happening. And it's just, oh, it drives me
If
to
if
no
park
end.
board wants to put some attention to restaurants, I've got a list of places you could put more restaurants in your
Right? Like
parks.
Spanish Banks. Look at
Spanish
Batch.
Banks.
Look at Batch down
Yeah,
at Kitts Beach. It is packed
all the
every
batches,
day.
all the
There,
batches.
right.
Yeah.
Why isn't there one in Spanish Banks?
Why is there not anything in Spanish Banks?
Nothing. You can't even get, rarely been able to get even a hot dog down there. Like you just can't. Okay, let's talk about other things here. Malcolm Brody's not running for
Shocker.
mayor in the next municipal election. Be interesting to see what happens in Richmond.
That's $400,000 a year less for him.
He's done a good turn. 25 years in that spot, right?
Yeah, and it seemed to, and his wife was the counselor as well for a while there.
Right.
Yeah, it's he's had a good run. The Malcolm and the fam. I think it's time. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. There's no political parties, at least there hasn't been in Richmond. So we will see if that changes in the next election. There's obviously a value to that as far as fundraising, and it's wide open. There are a couple of front runners that people talk about that we'll see if that happens. But at this point, it's wide open to anybody who wants it. And it's a pretty interesting community, pretty diverse, Asian, South Asian, Caucasian. So we'll see. And all the other ones, it's going to be a very interesting campaign to see who comes out front.
Yep, we got the countdown is really on now, right? We're a year out. A year out. It's right around your birthday, always.
Yes.
John Rustad, the BC Conservative Party leader, seems to be in a bit of hot water. What are you seeing here with the allegations of illegal memberships in Kelowna? He's under the leadership review right now, and it's a pretty clunky process. Instead of just having a meeting and deciding what's what, they're doing it like riding by riding over 4 months or something.
Yes, I always find it interesting that people get up, the public, the party process for any party is always interesting because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's whoever you put through as your leader, whatever process you went through, whether you stuffed the ballots, because there have been lots of examples of that in recent history where the leader of whether a civic or provincial party got there through very curious matters. This one is timing is interesting. I find like, okay, who are is all these same email URLs? It's like basically, signing up a bunch of members and paying for the memberships with 3 credit cards, all this kind of stuff. It makes you wonder, is it his people or is it the people against him trying to make him look bad because he's lost control of the party? At the end of the day, what it does appear, and we've talked about this a lot over the years, our 8 years in doing this podcast, is if you lose control of your caucus as a leader,
you're done.
You're toast. You're toast. It's only a matter of time. It's only, Trudeau being a laced victim of caucus revolt. Once your caucus revolts, you just got to decide what's the exit strategy because there's no coming back. And so he's close to that stage right now. I've always said that I think that if he'd run some moderates that were willing to run with him in the last election, that he would have got a majority. He refused. He was for whatever reason, was committed to the candidates that he had already chosen. But when the BC United failed and handed over basically their stuff to the BC Conservatives, he refused to let any of the to give the boot to some of the ones that have proven and are now pretty much gone, or some of them, from the BC Conservatives, and put in some stronger candidates that would have been better in the caucus, better for the province, and potentially would have given him the majority that he needed. But he chose, and I think that's where it all started. I think that's where some of this internal battling is like, dude, why? We could have had a majority, and now we have the biggest deficits in the history of this province. We're heading towards, a real financial problem here. And
Let's talk about the budget. Let's talk about Brenda Bailey and what we've heard this week about the forecast of our budget and the numbers that are being crunched and how they're being crunched. They're including money that may or may not appear in the budget.
I mean, just the property transfer taxes right now, the lack of revenue that they're going to get because nothing is selling right now is huge, and that alone has a big impact. That's the biggest moneymaker for the province. Obviously, we'll see what happens federally on the resource side, but that's a slow moving, thing. So yeah, there's no money being we came out of COVID and then
nothing's moving. The rate cut because of that, really, this week by the Bank of Canada. So a quarter point there that maybe that'll see some movement for people who were looking at their mortgage that came due, a 5-year mortgage that came due, and they're like, well, we cannot do that and have to sell their home, or people who were waiting to get into the market for prices to correct somewhat in a situation where that they could get into the market. So it's one of those things, and we've talked about it, I think it was a couple of episodes ago, where it's like a good news, bad news situation to see this much inventory, sales inventory, housing inventory available, but at the same time, it is putting pressure on rents to come down from what were like untenable, outrageous highs. Like there's always going to be that balance, that give and take a little bit, a lot, and the hope is the pendulum doesn't swing too far in one direction. So listening to Macklem yesterday speak with such caution about was it yesterday? Day before yesterday? My days are all mashed together. Sorry, it was Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday. We're taping this on Thursday, as we do. But just watching the governor of the Bank of Canada, speak with, real caution about where we are as a country and the impacts of what's happening with the United States on specifically on a couple of targeted industries, but also, how Canadians are managing to weather that to a certain degree here, and the bank trying to make it easier on citizens, and because inflation is staying within a certain amount. Like it is a fine dance for those of us on the everyday that look at our provincial balloon of deficit and going, I don't even know what that number means anymore. Those used to be numbers we would throw around as children as a joke, right? And then we don't even know what is happening at the federal level, because we're not getting those numbers until the 4th of November, which will be interesting once that arrives, because with all this capital spending, we're going to be building things and building them fast. That doesn't come without spending a lot of money.
Well, interest rates are important on a few levels. One is the federal government borrows money and has to pay interest. So the less the interest, the better it is for the federal government to initiate its capital planning.
Right.
And that goes for city governments as well, and provincial ones. So the less it is cost to borrow, the better it is. And also, I live in a building where there's, a lot of young people who bought places at probably a higher level than they should, and their mortgages are probably coming due around now. And I'm glad that we can get those interest rates down for those people who may have a $700,000 mortgage or whatever crazy thing, that you're 25 years old and, you and your partner decided to make the jump, and now your property's worth 30% less. But your property's worth 30% less, so you can't sell it. And what's weird is there's some stats came out this week about population growth in the region, and I thought it was interesting because it said it's down to what was predicted, but it's still predicting, I think, 40,000 people moving into the region per year. And so you're going, well, these people have to live somewhere. And then the other issue is, this is when I've talked about this, and this is why when I was in government, I would talk about this, in office, and I would talk about this all the time, is that when times are good, government needs to save. When times are bad, they spend. So we are in times that are bad right now. But unfortunately, our governments spent when times were good, provincially, locally, certainly in Vancouver, not in Burnaby, by the way. They saved in the good times.
Interesting, right?
And and then federally, Trudeau, partly because of COVID, but not a lot of room for deficits. But in order to, because this is what's so sad, if this happens every single time there's a crash, the developers who build the private sector market economy stuff, stop. You've seen them all canceling projects all over the place. They're just canceling. Toronto's even worse, but just cancel. And some of them are even like digging it and half built. They're like, oh, bye.
Yeah.
And that what happens is in 4 years when the economy bounces back, or 3 years, or 1 year, or 2 years, whenever it is, now you've got a whole bunch of projects that didn't get it put in the pipeline because developers said nope, and so they didn't put, which takes in Vancouver 5 years to build even a small building.
I
So
thought
now
it was 3 weeks, 3 months.
3. Yeah, that's right. So then you went with the bottleneck again, and you end up, and then prices skyrocket again, and so you don't create this. So if government comes
Flow.
in
Yeah.
during the bad times, builds consistently, so the volume's there, so that when the private guys come back, and then the government can pull back, you don't end up with this bottleneck and this crazy, price craziness. And on the rent side and the ownership side, it's I don't
Right.
understand why governments don't understand this. It's basic Keynesian.
Because everybody's so busy getting elected and reelected that they're not actually doing the things that do what is needed. I mean, we see that all the time. That's why, there's platforms that are trying to say how to correct government, how to, do it better. I always find it interesting when it's a former politician who actually did a bunch of damage who thinks that they can fix.
Yes, I know. You took a look good at Robertson.
Yeah.
He's an example, though, of a time, and that's politics, because in Vancouver, renters vote left and owners vote right. That's just general knowledge that we all know. So they looked at it as a way to grow their voter base. My feeling, as going back to what I just said, like, good times, government, get out of the way, let the market economy do its thing, make it easier, just let it do its thing, just make sure it does its thing properly. And then when it stops, you go, okay, now it's our turn, and we'll take care of everybody. That's how it works. That's how you keep a nice, stable economy and a nice, stable housing market. But we don't do that anymore. We just spend money, spend money, spend money, spend money, spend money.
Pendulum. And the people who are like, not in my backyard, and they hold it at bay, and no. And then it's finally, well, we got to do something. So then the province comes in to say to the city, you don't get to decide anymore. We're going to put a tower here. And guess what? It was going to be 4 stories in your backyard that you hated. And now it's going to be 21 stories in your backyard that you're going to hate. Like, if there was just a little bit more middle. I know, rainbows and unicorns, Jody, rainbows and unicorns. Let's talk about David-Eby meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney. He had a real quick visit before Carney had headed to Mexico City. I think they met this morning. And then Carney's on his way to go speak with the Mexican president to talk about CUSMA or USMCA or whatever you want to call it, about trade with Mexico, which I think Mark Carney's travels abroad and really making straight up connections is in a real shitty situation, the best and only thing we can really do. So as far as that, and we can talk more about his approval rating is really quite high for somebody who's dealing with as much as he is. But what's David-Eby saying to Mark Carney about what BC needs?
I think it's the other way around. I think it's Carney going, it's Carney going, you got to get out of the way. We need to build that pipeline, and we need to build a whole bunch of stuff up north, and you need to help me do that. Otherwise, I mean, BC is a pretty crucial part of the infrastructure plan for the future of this prosperity of Canada. But
the twinning of that LNG is.
But we have a government that's against.
But that'll be the largest natural gas pipeline on the planet.
Yes, thanks to
that's what Carney wants to do.
And and the only reason we have anything up north is not because of the NDP. And the NDP has.
Understand.
Yeah, so they this is what he's dealing with, to say to Eby, dude, you got to help me out here, because you half your caucus, and this is what Eby's dealing with as well, are the environmental side, the other half are the union side. So the union side, let's build, let's go. The environmentalists are saying, no, we just need to make plant pretty trees and not have any resources leave our country, and just let it all stay in the ground, and greenhouse gas emissions, yada yada yada, all that stuff. And they're like, we need to build, otherwise we are screwed. And so,
do you think maybe some of the people who were defaulting or embracing the idea that we should scale back on fossil fuels and move to an electrified future, and all of the conversations that we were having before Donald Trump threw the world economy on its head, do you think that some people have recognized maybe that we're moderate to that greener leaning part of the electorate that now understands that the natural resources in Canada have to be what saves us from, nothing will completely save us, but help us not be dragged by the United States. Like,
I mean, I
with the
wish there
current
were,
administration, because there's lots of people in the United States who think that Canada is amazing and don't want to see any of this happening to us. It's horribly unpopular. But what are we going to do? What do you think that maybe some of those people that you say are anti-fossil fuel or pipeline, who may or may not have voted for the Premier of British Columbia because they think he would stop that, who now might be like, you know what, I understand why we need to do a couple of these larger things
I think
because of the national interest.
yeah, I think more of those people maybe have been swayed because of what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, and the fact that we can't seem to turn off the
Right?
pipes to Russia's financial gain.
It's a good point.
If China could rely on Canada for more of its oil and gas, they might not have to rely on Russia. So, you know, I think that there is, you know, the ultimate question of, you know, how we, you know, there's a book that came out a long time ago called Ethical Oil, and it's, you know, oil being one category, but are we a country? Are we not the place that can produce the resources that we all need across the world in order to have the lifestyle that we need? Are we not the right place for that to come from, ethically, financially, the way we treat our people, the way we treat our workers? Is this not the right place to be doing that? And then throw in, of course, the carbon issue, and you know, the stuff that we're trying to also, you know, make this, you know, neutral when it comes to energy, and the greenhouse gas emissions, all that stuff. Of course, that conversation has to continue. But if you want your health,
of course it does,
and you want your roads, and you want this, and you want that,
and understanding where Canada is in how much this country's impact is on the greater climate emergency. You know, if we all just stopped everything and we're completely electrified and we're net zero, whatever you want to call it, how much impact would that have on what we all know is happening, right?
Yeah, and you look at China, which is already heading towards electrification
It's
through
wild.
massive amounts of solar energy and nuclear power. You know, that is the debate that we should be having here as well. Should we not be looking, if we're, you know, there's the resources that come out of it, but a lot of those things require our resources as well. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
in order to,
it's true.
what do you do? So you
But
can't
on the
build stuff
fast track,
without power.
on the large infrastructure fast track, the list we were reading off last week here, because that announcement had just come down, the 5 prioritized, the first bit of the list, did have 2 small nuclear reactors in Ontario as part of the plan, right? But it is a pipeline here, a pipeline there, a port there, that copper mine, and 2 nuclear plants. Like, it's obvious where the resources are that we have, that we need to lean on in order to stabilize our economy and bring investment into this country. Like, we're all getting an economics 101 lesson, you know, thanks to the current administration in the United States. And that's just true. I mean, let's see if pomp and circumstance in the UK might help the US president, like both the UK and Canada, more. And just be mad at Australia. Apparently he's mad at Australia now.
And Jimmy Kimmel.
And Jimmy Kimmel. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, was his, you know, yeah, this is about censorship, really, I guess.
You guess.
So the well, I don't know, but the king and that was interesting, and the projector mapping, you know, the protesters was kind of cool.
Epstein.
But you know, Trump walking in front of the king, all the, you know, who's the king here? Well, Trump thinks he is.
He did that to Queen Elizabeth too.
I know.
Yeah. That was horribly embarrassing, and she's kind of like,
yeah. But the Kimmel thing, I don't know, man.
Beautiful.
This is a tough one. The Kimmel thing. I think that's
not tough for me.
Yeah, I know.
Because I watch him every night, and I went back and I watched and I looked for what they were trying to hold him for. There is nothing. He said, this
is what he said for those. He said, we hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. True. But then he goes on and he mocks Trump, which we've all seen that clip already of Trump being asked a question, and then he said, look at my convention building over here, like, The guy's
Yeah,
not
the
he run,
ballroom.
yeah,
He's
the
like, how do you
ballroom.
feel about Charlie Kirk's
Good.
death?
Oh yeah, it
And
doesn't
he's like, oh, it's great, but we're breaking ground over here on the
worst
ballroom. So
worst pivot ever. You know,
ever.
that statement, I mean, but
But
it's, I guess
does
it's
that get you
timing.
fired? No,
No, but I
no.
guess timing, and there's a thing in print, you know, because I come from that award I won you brought up last
Yeah,
week,
yeah,
comes from
yeah,
the print industry, these
yeah.
newspapers, which I worked with on and off for 30 years, longer actually. I went to school for print journalism, but there's a
Yes.
thing called the publisher's prerogative in print, where the publisher has the right to decide what runs and what goes on the editorial page and what doesn't go on the editorial page. Quite often, the publisher herself will write the op-eds, and then there's letters to the editor, and then there's the cartoon,
Yeah.
so Jimmy Kimmel being the op-ed page and the publisher being whoever the hell that is that owns ABC now. It's like Disney, but also this conglomerate
Sinclair is the name of the company.
of the ownership
Sinclair.
group of the actual.
They are the conservative group that
Right.
are making the call. They told ABC, owned by Disney, that they will not distribute any of their shows if they don't fire or if they don't suspend indefinitely Jimmy Kimmel.
Which, if you follow the publisher's prerogative thing that I'm saying, that's their right. However, the problem is what happened was the FCC chair that morning yesterday saying he had a problem with this. That is not that is not something the FCC chair should be saying, which empowered the corporate group to do this.
But it came from Sinclair wanting to purchase more, have a greater monopoly of
they have a submission
local right. They have a monopoly of, they want a monopoly of local stations, and the FCC said, this could be, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way. Literally, that was the quote. And then the move was made. So that's the pressure. And then it's a freedom of speech, especially with a comedian. And I mean, I go back to George Carlin. I remember being a very small child. I had very progressive parents, and they would play George Carlin's record album comedy, and it was super edgy. Like at a time, it's like watching All in the Family. Like there were things that were said on some of these TV shows in the name of comedy. There are some of the things that Richard Pryor has said, or Eddie Murphy has said, or like Ricky Gervais says, Dave Chappelle says. Like there are things, and comedy is that edge that walks up to the line and steps just over it, right? And at the core, Jimmy Kimmel is a comedian. He's not even writing an op-ed. He is supposed to walk the line and be funny. So the way this is all structured, it reminds me of places where there is only state TV. And I just came from a place where I spent 17 days where there is only state TV. And in the United States of America, what Brian Kilmeade said on Fox News Morning, basically saying that homeless people should either have to take the help of government or be put in jail or be euthanized involuntarily. That person said that on that news outlet in the morning, and he still has his job, but Jimmy Kimmel doesn't, because so it's like, I understand your point about the editors. What is it? The editors
publisher's prerogative,
right? But it is upon the viewer or the citizen to look at what the publisher's prerogative is and act accordingly. You know how the backlash of for the owner of the LA Times, whether or not endorsing a candidate going into those are all the prerogatives. Those are all the
right.
I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just making the point.
So a couple of things. So a couple of things. One is
this is sticky.
Yeah, I know it's and so I would say the first part of what he said was not funny, and maybe too soon.
But every joke's not funny. But the first thing he did was first thing he did was put out a statement sending condolences to Charlie Kirk, his family, and all of them. So what he did, I'm just
so the first part was not funny, so that's not comedy. Second part is funny. That's funny. That's comedy if he's doing a comedy show. But Jimmy Kimmel aside, I think what the issue is here also. I mean, and America's whatever the craziness that's going on, but here it's this legacy media is in trouble, as we know, because we've worked in it. Everywhere it's in trouble.
So that's why you can find us on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast.
Well, and who knows how long that will be allowed as an American company. However, Spotify is owned by a Swedish company. So, there are where is the future of the people who will have the freedom? Will it be, ironically, on X, Twitter? Will he allow Jimmy Kimmel to go on there and say anything? Where are the places?
I
That's
doubt
what
it.
we need to start thinking about is
Yeah, good call.
where will the freedom of speech exist?
Live.
Because frankly, my kids don't watch Jimmy Kimmel. Nobody, and I barely watch TV. Like I don't watch
I
TV.
record it every night. I
Yeah.
record Colbert and
But I don't,
Kimmel
yeah, so
and Myers, and I love
I've-
their monologues.
I find it so, I just find them so out of date and so stale, so Johnny Carson. Like, okay, well,
I love Johnny Carson. Oh my God, it was so
it's
great.
1975. Anyways,
I know.
the
I
world
saw
has
it live.
changed.
It was
The
amazing.
platforms have changed.
Yeah.
The question, I think, for the only hope perhaps I have is that there are
Obi-Wan Kenobi?
The only place will be is are there going to be homes for people, whether it's Jimmy Kimmel or whoever, right wing, left wing, I don't care, where freedom of speech, where you can say what you want, like we do every week here on this podcast.
We do.
And where is there going to be a home for these people, and certainly for the American voices? I know there are people, and I bet you we all know people who are afraid right now to click like, to say somebody posts about Jimmy Kimmel saying this is terrible, to like it. You're kind of like, especially Canadians going, well, I'm not going to push like because I might go to the States and I don't want, they might go through.
Right. They're going to look at my phone and then they're going to put me in it. Yeah.
That is crazy. That is terrible. And that is what we need to worry about for sure.
But that's where this goes, because first they came for Colbert, then they come for Kimmel, and now then they come for us, right? Like
there's no money in TV anymore. That's what we're learning about.
Well, we'll see if there's any money, because
people
Kimmel's
fired
been
from
very
Global in
quiet.
Vancouver this week. So 23
that's
people. So it's over. It's time to move on and look for new money models for us to express ourselves. So
That's
sponsorship,
right. And on that note,
sponsorship
we're over.
For our podcast can be sent to george@curvecommunications.com.
Please hit like and subscribe. Grab us anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow along on social media. You can go on that Twitter, find George _Affleck, George_Affleck, and I'm at jody-vance, Jody with a Y, Jody-Vance. And make a comment below. We can talk about that. We record this every Thursday, and the news cycle goes so quickly. We apologize for things that happen immediately after we hit stop record.
Why did you stop?
Come on. All right, George.
See ya. Bye.